Hello guys, what happens if Ukraine agrees to give some of our territories to Russia? Many good people believe that is the only possible solution. That is the way to end the war and to save lots of innocent lives. Maybe it's a little bit wrong, maybe it's totally unfair, but that is the only available solution. So I decided to record this video and I ask you to share it with those who doubt or who do not understand why no one in Ukraine or no one who learned a bit more about Russia and international law agrees on this idea. No matter whether it comes from the Kremlin or surprisingly, since recently, from the White House. You will find a lot of important points in my conversation, I believe, and I've decided to structure them, starting with this legal, diplomatic, very obvious ones, and finishing with more emotional, more Ukrainian. So let's begin with these offers that keep coming from the Kremlin with more and more Ukrainian regions written down into the Russian constitution and then described as a legitimate Russian territory. You have to understand that they do it together with lots of other changes in the Russian constitution against the law, both of Russia and the international law. And here we come to a very important first fact. Since the Second World War, we built a system of the international world order and most importantly, international laws that protect this world order. And since the Second World War, no annexations, no war occupations of territories were legitimized. Because otherwise that would open a Pandora box. You do know that a lot of countries have border issues, disputes with other countries. That is, I think, even more common than absence of such conflicts between the bordering countries. Think about your neighbors, and I'm sure you will find some villages, some regions that otherwise could have been yours or theirs. So this law, these agreements that were signed after one of the greatest tragedies of the 20th century, built on the experience of that big war, led to the agreement between nations, and not just an oral agreement, but an agreement that helped us survive during the next 50 years. That we agree on the existing borders and we protect them, we support them, and we survive this way. What is more interesting and many forget about, in 1991, after the collapse of the USSR, Moscow agreed, supported, and signed the borders of Ukraine, together with other former Soviet republics, together with the Russian Federation borders. It was all agreed between the former republics. It is confirmed in dozens of agreements verified by Russia. They were okay with it until 2014. What makes it more important, you can find videos of Putin speaking about Crimea at the beginning of his presidential career and saying that it is Ukrainian, that it would be wrong to invade, annex it, thus opening Pandora box for other conflicts. And there he says this could lead to attacks on the Russian Federation too, because there are disputable territories inside Russia. Think about the Kuril Islands and Japan, many more territories, China, Finland. It all can be reshaped if we keep violating the international law. If we let Russia get Ukrainian territories, if we take their crazy rewritten constitution more seriously than the UN Charter, then it opens a Pandora box for reshaping of the borders around the world. Because why? It is allowed to Russia, but it is not allowed to China, or it is not allowed to Japan, or it is not allowed to Spain. Subscribe to demonstrate your solidarity with Ukraine and to understand more about this very important part of the world as it turns out. So this is the first argument. By protecting Ukrainian territorial integrity, we protect the international law and world order. And trust me, you need it. Also, we do not let the Kremlin, their temporary Putin's regime, deceive us. Because once again, even Putin confirmed that all these borders are legal, that Russia is okay with Crimea being Ukrainian. So, what has changed? Nothing, apart from the Kremlin's attitudes and their desire to play with the weakness of the West as they describe it. Plus, an additional important note, any agreement signed with Russia is not worth the paper on which it was signed. Once again, we have tons of agreements where Russia not just agrees on the 1991 borders of Ukraine, Lithuania, and Russia, because it was not just Moscow to decide, we all agreed together. But it is also a way to let them reshape anything they want. And trust me, they are looking in the direction of Poland, 10 drones, 19 drones, in the direction of Lithuania. Don't let them deceive you and don't let them persuade you that by giving some pieces of Ukrainian territory, we can stop the war. Many begin quoting the scenario of Finland, of Korea. First of all, it all happened once again in times around the Second World War, before our world order was set. But second, the only thing we achieve by letting Russia get Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhia, Kherson regions, we bring this war closer to your borders. And I'm sure people in Poland, Finland, Lithuania know what I mean. We only bring this war closer. The annexation of Crimea, the occupation of Donetsk, Luhansk regions, and the advice, let's not escalate, let's close our eyes, pretend it didn't happen, did not save us from the full-scale invasion. And here in Ukraine, we often describe it as a salami scenario. What Putin offers Witkov. I wanted to say a bad word about Witkov, you might have noticed, but I'm polite. So, he knows nothing about history, Witkov. He cannot name the regions of Ukraine he discusses with the bloody Kremlin regime, and he does not understand this diplomacy. But all they want to do, move closer to Zaporizhia, to Kherson, and then move deeper, deeper, deeper into Ukraine, then into Poland, then into Moldova. And you won't like it. You will feel it economically, even in the United States. So it's not a choice that we have. Once again, this is not just about territories. This is not just about people on those territories. We'll talk about that later. It's an extremely important emotional argument for me as a Ukrainian, but I try to focus, on the things that matter to everyone who may not like Ukraine, who may not support Ukraine, but still must understand that Russia must be defeated and punished for what it is doing, not just to us. It is very wrong to praise the dictators, the war criminals responsible for the deaths of hundreds of innocent Ukrainian children, if not thousands, thousands of stolen children, hundreds of thousands of killed Ukrainians for the sake of Putin's and will and those who support him. And if you prize people for such things with new territories, what do you achieve? Tell me, please, why would Putin stop if you persuade Ukrainians to give him territories that his army did not manage to capture during 3.5 years of their failed blitzkrieg? Just think about that. Via Trump, Putin wants to get the territories that he, together with millions of his soldiers, with North Korean soldiers on the backup, with the money of China and drones of Iran, cannot conquer. What are you asking us to bring this war closer to you? By giving him what he wants for killing people? That is insane. That is literally giving a prize and inspiring others. Once again, why would China then not invade Taiwan or the Philippines? Why? If Putin gets more of Ukraine, protected by Ukrainian people, so bravely, and do you want Russia a couple of 100 kilometers closer to you? That is honestly a total absurd. So Putin cannot get it, and he pushes, and our allies, because I consider the United States our allies, want to persuade that it is a smart move. No, it's not. It's the greatest mistake, and I'm super grateful that we understand it here inside the country, and more of our neighbors also see that and understand that. Now let's come closer to the realities on the ground. By the way, the realities on the ground is that neither Putin, nor Trump, nor Xi Jinping will be around in 10, 20 years. So can they be allowed to decide such things and to break the whole system of the world that helped us live without big wars, at least in the Western Hemisphere? Anyway, all these territories that Russians illegally put down in their constitution, they can put down Andorra or Texas the next day. Will you accept these realities of the Russian constitution? Can you imagine your neighbor putting you down in their passport and telling you, now we are married? Why? Because I've decided so. That is the equivalent of what Russia did with their constitution and with Ukrainian territories. Plus, they do not believe it themselves. If you were attentive, Putin, Medvedev kept repeating that if any long-range missile strikes Russian territory, then nuclear escalation. How many times we target temporarily occupied Crimea, Donetsk, Luhansk, even with your long-range missiles? And what? No escalation. Do you know why? Because they know it is not the Russian territory. They just check you and you keep saying, well, maybe, well, who knows, maybe give them territories and they will come down. Russia is the largest country in the world. Please accept it. They don't need new territories. They need war. They need to destroy the West. They need to destroy NATO. They need to take over Europe. That's what they want. So that the United States remain an isolated country with no market in Europe, with no market in China, and you will feel how that wealth that you were able to accumulate during this 50, 60 years of being a leader is very quickly lost. It will be felt, trust me. But let's return back to the realities on the ground. Share, like, subscribe, and please leave your comments. Let me know what do you think, what you agree with, what you disagree with, because that is a very close community of us on this channel, and I learn from you. Maybe I'm wrong in something. I'm always happy to see your point of view. We're not in Russia. We can have different opinions. That's the joy of being free, by the way, so let's use it. Anyway, on these territories that Russia wants Ukrainian army to withdraw from, this would never happen, but theoretically, we have perfect fortresses. We have really strong defense lines, something that protects us from them invading deeper in Ukraine. If something happens, I don't know, more soldiers join the army or something like that. That is the way to protect the rest of Ukraine. We were building them since 2014. And you want that, according to some agreement that will not guarantee Ukraine anything, that will destroy the world order, violate the international law, lead to more wars and redrawn borders around the world, you want us to let them get it without the fight? Plus, do not forget about thousands of Ukrainian soldiers who lost their lives protecting these territories. Here inside Ukraine, a decision to give up Ukrainian territories would lead to serious protest and destabilization of the state. Zelensky knows that he will not do it, but that is a Russian plan. One of the Russian plans, because they fail militarily, and you know it, you see it, is to destabilize Ukraine politically, to destabilize Ukraine by demonstrating the weakness of the government, the betrayal of their allies, and how will people feel? They were protecting these territories successfully. They were dying for these territories. They lost their limbs for these territories. And then someone tells them, retreat. It will not work like that. Plus, think about people in Zaporizhia, in Kherson, people who survived the occupation, who celebrated in Kherson the liberation, who remained there under constant drone attacks because Russians cannot get the territory, but their task is to destroy life there. Once again, they don't invade territories. They destroy territories and get the ashes. That is cruel. People stand for their homes, schools, hospitals, streets, memories, graveyards, kindergartens, favorite bakeries. Homes. These are homes, and people know what happens on the occupied territories, how they send Ukrainian patriots, active citizens, just active citizens. Putin is afraid of active citizens, to filtration camps, separate them from children, torture them, conscript them, and make them fight against you, against us, against the law. Geneva Convention. So you advise us to kill these people, and you have to know, Kherson, Zaporizhia, big cities, with the surrounding areas, these are 500,000, these are millions of people, of Ukrainians. And you advise to sacrifice these people, to give them to Putin, because he successfully bombed the hospitals? Or just because Donald Trump is the weakest president ever, betraying not just Ukraine, but Europe, for the sake of what? For the sake of Russia? For the sake of Kim Jong-un? Tell me who your friends are and I tell you who you are. So I believe this is more than enough of arguments why you should be happy that people in Ukraine do not plan to give up, do not plan to give our territories to Russia, because this war is not about territories. This war is the desire to destroy the Western system of the world, the system of law that protected our countries and our borders, and to let, Russia rule Europe, United States decline as a distant country with no open markets, and China take it all over in a century. Let not make it happen, because with all the negative scenarios, we are still stronger, richer, and kinder. And that is also very important, because these predators, they eat each other very quickly after one fails, and Putin keeps failing. On this channel, we have two very important videos. One describes the failures of Putin in Ukraine, how his blitzkrieg failed and how he actually made my country stronger, more militarized than it was. And the second video is a list of Russian failures inside Russia, because the moment Putin's blitzkrieg failed, the collapse of the Russian Federation began. I like it because it has already started. So please subscribe to this channel, share these videos, support our new NAFO campaign, because the Ukrainian armed forces right now protect not only Ukraine, protect you even if you are across the ocean, by protecting the international law. And trust me, you need it. Thank you for buying me coffees, becoming my patrons and sponsors of the channels, and helping me film more and share with you more. I'm beyond grateful for that. Remember to follow me on social media platforms, the link in the description of this video, same as the link to our merch shop that turns you into the ambassadors of Ukraine, reminding people around the world about the need to defeat Russia and to support Ukraine. United we stand. Slava Ukraini!